around 12,800 years ago, the last ice age was finally letting go. The glaciers were retreating. The world was getting warmer, greener, kinder. And then, in a span that may have been as short as a single year, the cold came back. Not slowly, all at once. This is the story of the year the world changed its mind. In parts of the northern hemisphere, temperatures dropped by as much as 10 degrees Celsius and stayed there for roughly 1,200 years. We call it the Younger Dryas, named after a small Arctic wildflower that suddenly thrived where forests had been creeping in. The giants of the Ice Age, mammoths, mastodons, saber-toothed cats, vanished around this time. An entire human culture went quiet. For over a century, we've agreed that something catastrophic happened. What we still can't agree on is what pulled the trigger. And the most dramatic answer, a comet, is also the one science trusts the least. So let's separate what we know from what we wish we knew. To understand the catastrophe, you have to picture the world it interrupted. By around 14,700 years ago, the planet had begun a long, hopeful thaw. Ice sheets that had buried much of North America and Europe were melting back. Grasslands spread. Herds of enormous animals moved across them, and following those herds were people. In North America, they left behind beautifully made stone spear points, and we call them the Clovis. They were, as far as we can tell, masters of a world that was finally opening up. Everything pointed in one direction: warmer, wider, more alive. And that is exactly what makes what happened next so strange. The recovery didn't stall, it reversed. The door that had been swinging open slammed shut. Almost overnight, in geological terms, the world fell back toward Ice Age conditions. The question that has haunted scientists ever since is deceptively simple. Why? The explanation most scientists accept is not cinematic. There's no fireball in it. It begins with water. As the great North American ice sheet melted, it pooled into an enormous lake. Geologists call it Lake Agassiz, held back by a wall of ice. And at some point, that wall failed. A vast surge of cold fresh water poured into the North Atlantic. To see why that matters, picture the ocean as a conveyor belt. Warm, salty water flows north near the surface, releases its heat into the air over Europe and North America, grows dense and sinks, pulling the whole belt along behind it. It's part of what keeps the Northern Hemisphere mild. Now dump a flood of light, fresh meltwater on top of it. The water can't sink. The belt stalls. And the heat that should have warmed the North simply stops arriving. That's the mainstream picture. Not a blow from the sky, but a switch flipped inside the ocean itself. It's well supported. It's physically sound. And it has one problem as a story. It's slow and it's quiet, which may be exactly why a louder explanation has refused to die. In 2007, a team of researchers led by Richard Firestone proposed something far more dramatic. They argued that fragments of a comet exploded over the northern hemisphere around 12,800 years ago, airbursting, scorching the land, and triggering the freeze. Their evidence sat in a thin, dark layer in the soil, found at sites across several continents, a so-called black mat, which they read as the ash of continent-wide fires. Within that boundary, supporters say they found the fingerprints of an impact, spikes of platinum, a metal rare in Earth's crust, but common in comets, microscopic diamonds, tiny glassy spheres that form only at extreme heat. And the claims have kept coming. In 2025 alone, one team reported shocked quartz, a mineral usually tied to impacts, while another pointed to matching traces in deep ocean sediments. So why isn't this the accepted answer? Because, for all the headlines, most scientists remain unconvinced. There is no crater. The supposed impact fingerprints can often form in ordinary ways: wildfires, volcanism, normal geology, so they aren't unique to a comet. And other labs have struggled to reproduce some of the key findings. In 2025, a major skeptical review went as far as calling it a failed hypothesis. One newspaper memorably described it as the comet theory that simply won't die. Here's where this channel will be careful with you. You may have seen videos tie this event to a giant crater under Greenland's ice. It's a tempting link, and it's wrong. That crater has since been dated to around 58 million years ago. It has nothing to do with the Younger Dryas. We mention it because the difference between a good mystery and a misleading one is whether you're willing to drop the parts that don't hold up. Whatever the cause, the consequences were real. As the cold returned, the great Ice Age animals of North America disappeared, and the Clovis people stopped making their signature spear points. How much of that was the climate? How much was human hunting? And how much, if anything, was a comet? That's still argued over today. The honest answer is that a single year of catastrophe rarely has a single clean cause. But the story doesn't end in extinction. When the cold finally broke, around 11,600 years ago, something remarkable rose on a hilltop in what is now southeastern Turkey. Göbekli Tepe, massive carved stone pillars raised by people who had no cities, no writing, and not yet even farming. Built by the survivors of a shattered world, almost as soon as that world steadied. We don't know everything they were trying to say, but the timing is striking. Humanity's first known monument went up in the long shadow of the catastrophe we've just described. So, what really happened 12,800 years ago? Strip away the noise, and the answer comes in two halves. The first half is certain. The world did fall, hard and fast, back into the cold, and a great deal of what lived in it did not survive. The second half is honest. We still don't know for sure what flipped the switch: a flood of meltwater, a fragment of a comet, or some combination we haven't untangled yet. And maybe the most interesting question isn't even in the ice. It's in us. Given a choice between a slow shift in ocean chemistry and a comet falling out of the sky, we reach, almost every time, for the comet. We want our catastrophes to have a villain. The past rarely obliges. The Younger Dryas is a reminder that the truth can be enormous and uncertain at the same time, and that sitting honestly with what we don't know is its own kind of discovery. Some worlds end in fire, some end in silence. We'll keep walking back into the ones history forgot. If you want to come with us, the next one's already waiting.